Welcome back. You're watching Startup Central and Tech, Trust and Tinder. Well, that's what we're going to be focusing in this segment of Startup Central as India becomes the first country in Asia where Tinder is launching its face check safety feature. We caught up with Match Group, which owns Tinder and Hinge. We caught up with the trust and safety head of the company, Yoel Roth, to understand how the company is reimagining safety for its Indian consumers. That and more lined up in this conversation. You take a look at this conversation that I had with Roth a couple of days back. Meanwhile, from me, it's goodbye and thank you very much for watching. Thanks very much, Yoel, for joining us here on ET Now and taking the time out to speak to us. First things first, let's talk about safety as far as the Match Group is concerned. Given the kind of apps, the diversity of apps that you offer for the India market and, of course, for your global markets, how are you looking at safety, particularly with respect to women, in of course, the backdrop of how AI is also developing?
Yeah. In the context of dating apps, our business is reliant on earning the trust of our users, and we think that that begins with a strong investment in safety. I'm here in India to meet with a number of the organizations that we work with at the Match Group level and at our brands, Tinder and Hinge, with a focus on promoting women's safety, respectful, consensual interactions on our service, and authenticity. This takes a lot of different forms. It starts with our policies and the way we enforce them, our zero-tolerance approach to abuse and hate and harassment, but then also extends to things beyond our platforms, like how we educate people about respectful dating and consent. We take a really broad view of these issues and are invested in promoting respectful dating every step of the way.
So, Yoel, when you talk about promoting respectful dating every step of the way, and of course you do have some features as far as your apps are concerned, but as a business, how are you ensuring that actually that results into actionable results?
Yeah. The core of what we do as a trust and safety team is set guidelines for what we expect our users to do, build technology to enforce those guidelines proactively, and then create a product that encourages more of that positive behavior that we're really looking for. Every single day, my team is responsible for ensuring that all of the interactions happening on Tinder and our other apps are meeting a high bar of safety. Our goal in doing that is not just to clean up problems after they happen, but to prevent them. And to that end, one of the statistics we keep close track of as a business is our proactive enforcement rate. Not just how many bad users we're removing, but how many we remove without the need for a report. Here in India, more than 90% of the fake accounts that we remove across our apps are removed without the need for a user to report them. I want that number to be as close to 100% as it can be, because that would signal that we are proactively finding and taking care of harmful behavior before it impacts any of our users.
Can you give us a sense of the kind of findings that you have gotten over the past couple of years, particularly when it comes to safety?
One of the most striking findings that we've seen is that people are really concerned with and want to see investment in addressing fake accounts and inauthenticity. About 2/3 of daters have said that this is the most important safety issue that they're concerned with when they're using online dating apps. And that's part of what's driving our investment in new safety features like Face Check, which we're launching here in India today. We really want to build an app that ensures that every single person on Tinder is a real and unique human. And we're building new and innovative technology and rolling it out here in India to make sure that that's happening.
Right. So, Yoel, as of now, we're talking about in-app behavior, but I think safety also expands to offline behavior as well, which is essentially when people move out of the app and meet in person. As a company, how are you ensuring that safety, trickles down to personal, visits as well, or, these meetings that happen? How are you ensuring that?
Yeah. There's 3 things that we do each and every day to make sure that every interaction when people meet face-to-face is as safe as it can be. It starts with education. We need to make sure that whether you're meeting on an app or meeting in a bar or a restaurant, that people know the ground rules of what respectful, consensual dating looks like. And that's why we work closely with our partners here in India and around the world to develop educational curriculum focused on consent and respect. And we want to make sure that every dater in our app is equipped with that knowledge. We feature it in our safety centers, and we're always making those resources available to our users. Second, we offer daters tools to be able to stay safe when they make the decision to meet up. For example, on Tinder, we offer a feature called Share My Date that lets you share information about who you're meeting up with, where you're going, and when you'll be there with a trusted friend or family member. And so in the event that something happened, that information is already with a friend or family member who can support you and help you out. And then third and finally, we want to make sure we're offering comprehensive reporting options to our users. One of the biggest challenges that we see and that we hear about from law enforcement is underreporting. People who have a negative experience and then don't tell anyone about it. One of the most important things that people can do if they have a bad experience or just if they encounter something that doesn't seem right is report it. And we've invested a lot in building a reporting experience that's not only quick and easy to use, but also supportive and provides people with access to the best resources that can help them if they've encountered some type of harm.
Absolutely. So in that aspect, what are the kind of partnerships that you're forging?
Yeah. One of the most important products that we've rolled out in the last year is a partnership with an organization called Throughline. Throughline is really built to solve a core problem, which is that American tech companies tend to build solutions that are very specific to the United States. And oftentimes, users in other countries don't get the same kind of effective treatment. Throughline is built to solve that problem by making sure that when companies are offering support resources to their users, they're trusted, vetted, local organizations. And so now in all of our apps, if you're looking for support or help, whether it's about mental health or you think that you've experienced some type of harm, we're offering tailored resources, including hotlines and chat services that can provide you not just with support generally, but with access to local resources where you are, including here in India.
Okay, so when you talk about the Indian market, let me also ask you, how are you looking at the Indian market? Are you looking at increasing investments here, given the fact that we're seeing interest from global companies, global conglomerates who are looking at the India market, the domestic opportunity that the India market presents? How are you looking at this market versus some of the other markets that you're operating in? I believe over 100 geographies is where you're present.
Yeah, we think that there's an enormous opportunity for the dating category around the world, but we've seen some really promising and exciting developments here in India, particularly related to openness to the online dating category, especially amongst urban singles. We see that young folks in India, especially people in cities, express that they're very open to the idea of meeting somebody on a dating app and are very interested in using apps like Tinder to find new dates and connections. And that's definitely driving some of our investments here in the market. It's also why we're placing a really strong focus on safety features here in India. India is one of the first countries in the world where we're rolling out Face Check as a mandatory safety feature to keep profiles on Tinder real. And we're doing that to ensure that when people turn to Tinder or a dating app, maybe for the first time, they're having a positive experience where they're confident that the accounts they see are real.
Right. But in terms of sheer usage, could you give us a sense of the numbers and usage patterns in Tier 1 cities versus Tier 2 and 3 towns?
Largely what we've seen in India has been that the biggest cities, Mumbai, Delhi, tend to be the places where we see the most activity. But the magic of dating apps is that anybody, anywhere can use them to find those connections. And so we're certainly looking for opportunities to grow our business in some of the larger cities in India, but we're not limiting our growth in that way.
You're not limiting your growth. You will, of course, be expanding into these Tier 2 and 3 towns and cities as well as what you're suggesting, Yoel. But let me talk about the overall growth projections that you have, especially as far as your India market is concerned versus some of the other markets. And if you could give us some more trends into consumer behavior, into how people are using these apps, the time spent on these apps and how they are being used essentially.
Yeah. As I said, India is one of the markets where we're seeing really sustained growth and see really promising prospects for our apps and for the dating category more generally. But one of the trends I've focused on leading Match Group's trust and safety team have been some of the trends around online safety. And in particular in India, when I was here earlier this year and on my trip now, one of the concerns I continually hear about and that we're really focused on is account authenticity. We hear from regulators and from users and from NGOs that people want to make sure that the accounts they're interacting with on dating apps are authentic, aren't scams, and are accounts that people can feel safe connecting with. And that's really driving our investments in building new products and safety features here in India.
Right, and that's essentially what really differentiates your companies from the rest of them, because people want to feel safe. Women, more importantly, safety is a major consideration as far as dating apps are concerned. But where do you really see this overall market headed? I'm sure you have also used the app. Where do you see this market headed?
One of the trends that I've seen from the days when I met my partner on a dating app to now is that the dating app category is not as stigmatized as it once was. Match.com, one of the very first online dating websites, celebrated its 30th birthday this year. And so this is a category that is no longer brand new. It's in fact quite mature. And the research that we're seeing in India and globally is that young people no longer feel any sense of shame or reluctance about using online dating to meet. A majority of relationships for LGBTQ people form first online. We see that many young people, Gen Z especially, are very open to the idea of using online dating and don't perceive shame or stigma related to the use of apps. And that's a tremendous opportunity for the category.
And how will it evolve over the next couple of years?
Ultimately, I think people's preferences and interests about online dating are going to change a lot. One of the areas that we've seen people really focus in on is how do you express your true self in the context of a dating profile? How do you go beyond kind of high-level statements of what you're interested in and let people into your world? And that's something that we're really focused on in the way that we're building out Tinder, Hinge, and our other apps. We want to give people great tools, including tools supported by AI, to be able to express themselves.
Right. Yoel, since you're a leader, global leader as far as tech policy is concerned, let me also ask you some broader questions around tech policy and how it's evolving globally, particularly with respect to the kind of geopolitical disruptions that we're seeing. In fact, we just had the External Affairs Minister of India state about 2 days back that big techs are becoming much more concentrated and power is concentrated in a handful of companies. How do you really see that scenario playing out, and how are companies bracing for these geopolitical disruptions and how they manage their businesses?
One of the biggest trends that we've seen over the last 5, maybe even 10 years is regulators around the world stepping forward and holding companies accountable to investments in online safety. We've seen leading regulation in Europe, in the UK, in Australia, and certainly with the IT rules here in India that create high standards for companies to meet when it comes to investments in protecting their users. Now, from the position of Match Group, one of the interesting sides of that is how regulation impacts not just the biggest companies in the world, but companies that are building innovative products but might not be quite at that massive scale. And one of the developments that I'm really focused on with my team is how we can ensure that regulations are principles-based and focused on outcomes rather than just prescribing specific remedies that might be suitable to companies with billions of users, but could make it harder for smaller firms to compete.
Right, and that's essentially what we're seeing here in India as well with respect to, one of the social media platforms, and a case against that is currently going on. It was heard in the Karnataka High Court as well. So this entire debate around free speech versus regulation, that really is taking shape. And do you want to share your thoughts on that as well? Because the governments feel that safety is most important, and companies, global companies, no matter where they operate, they have to follow the law of the land.
Again, I would come back to diversity. One of the things about the tech industry is that it's not just big tech. It's big tech, it's small tech, it's mid-sized tech, and then within that, there are lots of different apps built for lots of different reasons. In the dating space in particular, I think we place a very high value on safety precisely because as a business, we aren't going to be successful if people don't feel safe on our apps. And so while there's lots of debates that we can have in the tech industry more generally about the right lines around free speech, we've taken a position that in the context of dating apps, what matters most is safety and authenticity, and we build our products in a way that reflects that balance. So
are you essentially stating that it is eventually the responsibility of technology companies as far as the user safety is concerned? Because the ramifications are not going to be just limited to the apps, but they will also reflect off the app.
I think tech companies and regulators, as well as users themselves, have to work together to navigate what the right balance is going to look like. And what I'd emphasize is that that balance looks different depending on what the purpose of an app is. If an app is built to allow people to discuss politics, you might place a higher value on free speech. But in the context of dating, if your apps are focused on people making those one-to-one connections in the real world, it makes sense to place a higher value on safety. And those are some of the strategic decisions that companies are best positioned to make.
Right. Yoel, I also want to talk a little bit about your previous experience before you joined the Match Group. You, of course, were at Twitter. I mean, how do you see the company having moved or having evolved from that point to this point on?
I would say there are lots of folks out there who are going to have a more up-to-date perspective on what the company is doing now and how it compares to its position in the past. But for me, the broader message here is really about the centrality of safety to businesses. Right. When I look at Match Group's stance towards investment in safety, and I look at some of the work that we did in my time at Twitter, the core of it was that there's not just a moral imperative to invest in safety, there's also a business imperative to do so. Building products that are successful and that people love using requires you to build them with an eye towards safety and to maintain a very high bar. That was something that I made every effort to do in my time at Twitter, and some of the decisions were right, some of the decisions were wrong, but you're always trying to strike the right balance there, and I think it's really critical that leaders of companies of every size recognize that they have to try to invest in a way that is going to ultimately promote the safety outcomes that users and regulators expect.